China has leaked more images of what they say is a stealth fighter or maybe a stealth drone. Nobody really seems to know for sure, not the least of which is the People's Liberation Army themselves. But is this just another Chinese propaganda trick? But is it part of a larger move of information warfare by the Chinese? And are the Russians a key player within it? Let's talk about it. Okay, so these images, now bear in mind, I don't know this particular outlet, and so the images are real, but the coverage seems pretty favorable to China. And these are just two grainy shots of what they purport to be a stealth jet or some sort of sixth generation aircraft. But I think it's important to note that China does not really have a fifth generation fighter. This is significant, right? They claim it's the Chengdu J-20, but it is currently in service, but there's not really a lot of evidence that it is a fifth generation fighter in the way, say, the F-22 is, right? Because the thing that makes the F-22 so special is that it's stealth. It's invisible to radar. It has a bunch of other stuff that punches it up. But the thing that makes the F-22 great is that if you have conventional radar-based air defenses, such as those fielded by China, China, Iran, Russia, a stealth fighter is going to cut right through those. And the fact is the J-20 just doesn't do that, right? And so even the US, right, which normally hypes up its near peer threats, had said, listen, I don't think this J-20 is all that stealthy. He says, we should respond with our own concerns, but it's a really, really, it's pretty generous to think that this thing has that stealth capability. The Chinese have certainly never acknowledged it. So this idea that the Chinese now have a sixth generation fighter ahead of the United States seems pretty unlikely. But the speculation is that because it looks a lot not like a crewed fighter, but might actually be what they call a UCAV, right? A uncrewed combat assistant vehicle or something. And the idea, what they also call it a loyal wingman, right? The idea that it's essentially that it turns the pilot of your fifth generation fighter into a drone controller. Imagine sort of like in Top Gun, instead of having, Maverick in the front and Goose as the weapons officer literally is guiding a drone, right? Or the weapons officer is an AI powered drone and you can just talk to it. Hey, drone, strike the other air defense site. I'm going to get this one, something like that. Right. This is something that the U.S. has been working tirelessly on, building out, again, something that combines super advanced drone tech with AI. But it's not clear the U.S. is really all that far along. Certainly, it's one thing to have an AI that can, write you a sonnet about Bitcoin. It's a different thing entirely to have an AI that can select, identify, choose targets, fly essentially a fifth generation or combat aircraft autonomously. There's a reason why we keep having to stick pilots in these things. But the fact is, the fact that this has been covered not just by this outlet, but by the South China Morning Post, means that the Chinese government wants people to see this. And what the association they want people to make is with this, the XB-47. This is a UCAS that was experimental, a demonstration combat unmanned aerial vehicle that was designed to be launched from an aircraft carrier, right? It's not a secret, right? You look at the profile of this with its kind of W-wing design, and you sort of see it here, right? And the idea is that the Chinese want to sort of signal that they are on par with the United States in terms of its most advanced technology. But you can see here that this thing, again, is 10-year-old tech, right? Here it is flying in 2011. And frankly, they've only built two, and it's never really got off the ground, so to speak. It's very expensive. Again, it was never really stealthy enough, and it was never really invisible to radar, because the last thing you want, nothing is more annoying than having it being in a stealth aircraft and then having your drone loyal wingman not be stealth. right? It also just doesn't really work when it comes to complex carrier operations. It's really hard to get this thing to operate on a carrier. So the fact is that China wants to sort of project this message that says that we are on par with the United States. Our advanced programs are just as good. But it also wants to signal more broadly that it is a strong and stable security partner, that it is almost as good as the US in terms of being a security partner. That's why they conduct, for example, recently, this was just a few days ago, a 5-day naval exercise in the Sea of Japan, right? They did this jointly with Russia, but Russia, you may think, doesn't really have much of a strategic interest in the Sea of Japan. They have some, don't get me wrong, but the vast majority of Russian strategic interests, especially now, are in Europe. But both sides really want to signal. China wants to signal about how strong and capable a security partner it can be, right? And an economic partner, by the way. And Russia, in turn, wants to signal to potential adversaries that if they don't have their own navy, thanks to some Ukrainian drones, they still can rent a navy, still have a friend with a nice, powerful navy. And so that's why they conduct these kind of exercises. Again, these aren't like massive exercises. An anti-submarine ship, 2 destroyers, 2 submarines. It's not nothing, but these aren't like turbo mega exercises. But again, it's not about the size of the exercises. It's the Chinese trying to signal that if you're a country, particularly a country that maybe the United States isn't really going to partner with anytime soon. Think a country like Laos, a military dictatorship. China says, listen, you can come be our partner, and you can at least have an ally who has advanced stealth droney aircraft, right? Which we totally have, but we can't show you anything other than grainy pictures. You'll get access to our robust deepwater navy, something that China sort of wishes it has, but isn't quite there yet. And they say, look, even our partner Russia, who lost all of these naval vessels to the Ukrainians, lost so many vessels they can't even have a Navy Day parade, they still are able to have this sort of naval coverage, naval support in the same way that, for example, Europe, which has generally EU countries have very limited naval capabilities, they still enjoy their interests protected, right, by the U.S. Navy. So I think this is part of a larger China campaign to be like, China, we're a good friend too. Or more aptly, like, we're a good enough friend.